We're going to confront it and see where it goes.
Within weeks of the Greensboro sit-in, similar protests were breaking out in more than 30 southern cities.
There was an astounding, rapid ripple effect someplace. And all of the people sitting in were young.
We had crossed the line. I was no longer afraid of getting arrested and afraid to go to jail.
Young people getting arrested on purpose so they could be free. They touched the conscience of America.
As we began to see what was coming out of the South, we knew that there was something wrong in this country.
It looked like we were going to war.
For the second time in the century, Americans faced the threat of war over Berlin. But now, both sides had nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. No president ever spoke more frankly to the nation about the real possibility of nuclear war.
In the event of an attack, the lives of those families which are not hit in a nuclear blast and fire can still be saved if they can be warned to take shelter and if that shelter is available. We owe that kind of insurance to our families and to our country.
Families were advised to build bomb shelters. Schools held atomic attack drills.
But it didn't seem to be sensible that I was hiding under this desk. And so I had this worry, and everybody talked about this worry about the bomb.
This nuclear threat over Berlin was diffused, but the Soviet-American confrontation would continue. In October of 1961, the Soviets began building the Berlin Wall. The wall would become a symbol of the Cold War's brutal reality. The Cuban Missile Crisis would last for 13 days that October. The president and his most trusted advisors tried to figure out how to get Khrushchev to remove the missiles from Cuba.
It shall be the policy of this nation to regard any nuclear missile launched from Cuba against any nation in the Western Hemisphere as an attack by the Soviet Union on the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response upon the Soviet Union.
The U.S. military was put on the maximum level of alert, DEFCON 2. The president ordered the Navy to mount a blockade around Cuba.
All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, where they're found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back. This quarantine will be extended, if needed, to other types of cargo and carriers.
For 72 hours, the world watched and waited as Soviet ships approached the quarantine line.
They kept coming, they kept coming, they kept coming, they kept coming. So there would be these days of incredible tension.
They were determined to avoid that in the future.
In 1961, the author James Baldwin wrote, "To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage all the time." In the early 1960s, young people would take the lead in the battle for racial equality. Federal courts had ruled that segregated waiting areas in bus stations were illegal, but the law was not being enforced. To pressure the Kennedy administration to intervene, activists rode public buses into the Deep South to integrate the facilities. Outside of Anniston, Alabama, the bus carrying the first group of self-proclaimed Freedom Riders was firebombed.
By the time the Freedom Ride started, there was a realization that some of us would have to die.
We knew that this was a very dangerous mission.